If you are killed inside your own home, and your husband spends the next 2 hours bleaching the kitchen floor, are you still considered missing? If the nanny is already wearing your clothes? Record log. May 25, 2026. Case reference. The Maple Drive homicides. Investigators called it the perfect crime. For exactly 48 hours. North Atlanta was the kind of place where fear was carefully landscaped. Every driveway was pressure washed. Every lawn was trimmed to identical height. Every family portrait hanging in every hallway looked professionally staged. The people living there believed money could disinfect reality. They believed bad things only happen somewhere else. In abandoned motels, in dark alleyways, in cities with broken streetlights, not behind imported oak doors protected by biometric security systems, not inside homes with heated marble floors and $8,000 espresso machines. But monsters evolve, and the modern monster understands presentation. The modern monster attends charity galas. He donates to children's hospitals. He shakes hands with senators. And sometimes, he performs surgery before lunch. Dr. Julian Vance understood presentation better than anyone. 42 years old. Orthopedic surgeon. Featured twice in Atlanta Living magazine. One article called him the miracle hand of Georgia. Another called him the man saving professional athletes. Patients trusted him. Neighbors admired him. And his wife, Clara Vance, completed the illusion. Former corporate attorney. Elegant. Controlled. Always smiling just enough. The kind of woman who remembered birthdays, hosted wine tastings, and sent handwritten thank you cards. Together, they looked untouchable, which is why nobody noticed the changes. The late-night arguments, the blackout curtains installed across the kitchen windows, the nanny who arrived without warning, the grocery deliveries increasing every week despite nobody hosting guests, or the fact that Clara slowly stopped appearing in public photographs. At 4:12 a.m., on a cold Tuesday morning, the County Dispatch Center received a call from house number 14. It lasted exactly 82 seconds. The caller whispered every word, not because she was afraid of being overheard, because she was afraid. Someone was already standing behind her. The dispatcher answers, "Emergency 911. State the nature of your emergency." For several seconds, there is only breathing. Shallow, uneven. Then a young woman speaks. 14 Maple Drive, she whispers. "Please send detectives. And don't turn on the sirens until you enter the cul-de-sac." The dispatcher immediately asks if someone is injured. The woman pauses, then quietly says, "Yes." The dispatcher asks for clarification. The caller responds, "She's on the kitchen floor. She hasn't moved for 20 minutes." The dispatcher asks if the victim is breathing. The answer comes instantly, "I don't think so." Then, another sound enters the recording. Soft footsteps. Wood creaking. The caller suddenly lowers her voice. He's still cleaning. The dispatcher asks, "Who is cleaning?" And the young woman replies, "Julian." The dispatcher asks if Julian attacked the victim. The response is immediate. No. Then comes the sentence detectives would replay more than 200 times during the investigation. "I attacked her." Silence. The dispatcher stops typing. The caller continues. "She found the emails. She found the photographs. She started screaming. I used a skillet from the stove. I only hit her once, but she collapsed immediately." The dispatcher asks for the caller's name. "My name is Elena." Then, another pause. "He told me not to panic. He told me we could still fix this." The dispatcher asks who told her that. "Julian." She begins crying quietly. "He's washing the floor right now. He wrapped the skillet in garbage bags. He said he knows exactly how police investigations work because he's testified in homicide trials before." The dispatcher tells her to stay calm, to remain hidden, to stay on the line. Then the caller says something investigators never forgot. You don't understand. Julian isn't scared. The dispatcher asks what she means. The nanny whispers. He looks relieved. Another sound. A sliding glass door opening. Footsteps on gravel. The caller's breathing becomes frantic. He looked toward the guest house window. The dispatcher asks if he can see her. The answer comes in a trembling whisper. Yes. Then one final sentence. He's carrying his surgical kit. The line disconnects. Cleanly. No scream. No struggle. Just silence. Patrol units arrived at 4:25 a.m. Rain covered the cul-de-sac in a thin, reflective sheen. The neighborhood looked asleep. Perfectly asleep. No barking dogs. No lights turning on. No curtains moving. House number 14 stood at the end of the street, like a luxury showroom. Warm exterior lighting. Black Range Rover. Fresh flowers by the front steps. And sitting calmly on the porch, Dr. Julian Vance. He wore a navy silk robe. One leg crossed over the other. A cup of black coffee balanced carefully in his hand. When officers approached, he smiled. Not nervously. Professionally. The kind of smile doctors use before delivering difficult news. Officers, he said calmly. There seems to be some confusion. The police entered the home. The kitchen lights were on. The counter sparkled. No blood. No signs of violence. No broken objects. The marble island looked recently polished. One detective later described the room as unnaturally clean. Almost staged. Upstairs, they found Clara Vance alive. Asleep in the master bedroom. Pulse stable. No visible injuries. Only heavily sedated. Julian calmly explained that the nanny suffered from dissociative episodes. Night terrors. Paranoia. He claimed Elena had become emotionally unstable after developing romantic feelings toward him, and for several minutes. It sounded believable, until Detective Mara Hensley noticed something unusual. The kitchen trash bags were missing. All of them. Every single bin inside the house had been emptied, and the bleach bottle beneath the sink was still wet. At 5:11 a.m., an officer searched the detached tool shed. Inside, behind bags of fertilizer and gardening equipment, he found a pair of women's running shoes. Size 7. The soles were soaked in blood. Fresh blood. Typo negative. Clara's blood type. But the strangest detail wasn't the blood. It was the positioning. The shoes had been carefully arranged side by side, perfectly parallel, like someone wanted them discovered. The police immediately detained Elena. But when detectives entered the guest house, nothing about her behavior matched the terrified woman from the 911 call. She sat calmly at the dining table, wearing one of Clara's sweaters, drinking tea. No tears, no panic, no signs of shock. Detective Hensley asked her name. The woman looked directly at her and smiled. My name isn't Elena. The detective asked again. The woman tilted her head. My name is Rachel Vance. The room went silent, because Rachel Vance was officially dead. 7 years earlier. Chicago. Vehicle fire. Body identified through dental records. Death certificate signed. Insurance collected. Case closed. And according to every federal database, Rachel Vance was Dr. Julian Vance's first wife. Detectives reopened the Chicago case within hours. The original accident report described a late-night vehicle collision on Interstate 90. The victim's car crashed into a barrier before igniting. The body was severely burned. Identification relied almost entirely on dental records. At the time, Julian Vance appeared devastated. Friends described him as shattered, heartbroken, destroyed. He took a 6-month leave from surgical practice, moved to Atlanta, and eventually married Clara 2 years later. The timeline looked tragic. but clean. Too clean. Detective Hensley requested the original autopsy photographs and immediately noticed something strange. The victim's left hand was missing. The report claimed it detached during the fire, but Hensley noticed surgical precision around the wrist. Not burn damage, a controlled incision, made by someone with medical training. Then another detail surfaced. Rachel Vance had undergone reconstructive dental surgery 6 months before her death, meaning the dental records used for identification could have been manipulated. Suddenly, the impossible became plausible. What if Rachel never died? What if somebody else burned in that vehicle? And what if Julian Vance had been rehearsing identity replacement for nearly a decade? 3 days later, police recovered encrypted audio files hidden inside Clara's laptop. Each file was labeled using random dates, but when assembled chronologically, a terrifying picture emerged. Clara had known something was wrong for months. Recording 1. Julian keeps replacing small things in the house. My shampoo, my vitamins, even my perfume. But when I ask him about it, he acts confused, like I'm imagining things. Recording 2. The nanny copies me. She studies the way I talk. Yesterday, she repeated an entire conversation I had with the mailman, almost word for word. Recording 3. I checked the employment agency. They have no record of Elena. None. Julian says there was a clerical mistake. But I searched her room today. There's a notebook filled with my handwriting. Entire pages where she practiced my signature. Recording 4. I think they're replacing me. The final recording lasted only 23 seconds. Clara sounded terrified. If anything happens to me, don't trust Julian. And don't trust the woman living in the guest house. She already knows where I keep my jewelry. She already knows my coffee order. Yesterday she wore my dress, and Julian smiled at her like he forgot which one of us was his wife. The audio cuts abruptly. A loud sound follows. Then silence. Police obtained a warrant to search Julian's private medical office, hidden beneath a false storage cabinet. They discovered an undocumented surgical room. No patient records. No registration. No cameras. Only surgical tools. An industrial sterilizer. And shelves containing dozens of labeled prescription bottles. Some belonged to Clara. Some belonged to Rachel. And some belonged to women investigators couldn't identify. Detective Hensley also found something else. A stack of photographs. Each image showed different women, different hair, different ages, different cities, but all of them shared similar facial structures. Julian had marked certain features with red pen: jawline, eyes, cheekbones, like a surgeon planning reconstruction. Then they discovered the final folder, a file labeled Project Mirror. Inside were psychiatric notes written by Julian himself. One sentence appeared repeatedly. Identity is only habit reinforced by environment. Another line read, memory can be reassigned through repetition, isolation, emotional dependency, and controlled sedation. Detectives realized this wasn't just murder. It was experimentation. Rachel finally agreed to speak without legal counsel. The interrogation lasted 6 hours. Most of it was unusable, because Rachel's personality kept changing. Sometimes she spoke like Elena, young, timid, submissive. Then suddenly, she spoke with Clara's cadence, calm, articulate, controlled. At one point, she corrected Detective Hensley's grammar exactly the way Clara once had during a neighborhood fundraiser. The detectives asked how she survived the Chicago fire. Rachel smiled faintly. You're asking the wrong question. Hensley asked what the correct question was. Rachel leaned forward. Which wife survived? Then she laughed softly and refused to elaborate. Psychological evaluators later concluded Rachel displayed signs of severe identity fragmentation. But one psychiatrist noted something deeply disturbing. Her fragmented personalities appeared intentionally trained, not naturally developed, as if somebody had systematically conditioned her to become interchangeable. Investigators interviewed neighbors across Maple Drive. Most described events as perfect, until one woman remembered a strange dinner party from 6 months earlier. She recalled Clara leaving the table midway through the evening. Minutes later, Clara returned, but something felt different. She suddenly forgot details about conversations she herself had started earlier. She called one guest by the wrong name, and she held her wine glass with the opposite hand. The neighbor initially dismissed it, but then she remembered something else. Julian looked unusually happy that night, proud, like a teacher watching a student succeed. Detectives began constructing a horrifying possibility. Maybe Clara had already been replaced before the murder. Maybe the woman living in the house during the final weeks wasn't Clara at all. Financial investigators traced the shell company Clara mentioned, Blackwood Holdings. The company existed only on paper. No employees, no offices, no products. But over 7 years, millions of dollars passed through its accounts. The payments connected to private clinics, underground psychiatric facilities, and several missing persons reports across 3 states. Then investigators uncovered encrypted emails. One message read, "Subject adaptation successful. Emotional bleed-through minimal. Transfer candidate approved." Another stated, "Mirror protocol requires complete domestic immersion before inheritance transfer." Nobody understood the full meaning, but detectives noticed one repeating phrase, "the wives." Plural, not wife, wives. During a second forensic sweep, investigators discovered hidden architectural plans. The house originally included a basement level, but official renovation documents claimed it had been sealed years earlier. Police tore open the wall behind the wine cellar and found a steel door, locked from the outside. Inside, there was no furniture, only mattresses, security cameras, soundproof padding, and mirrors, dozens of mirrors, every wall, every angle. One mirror had a sentence scratched into the surface, "Watch until she believes." Another contained tally marks, hundreds of them. Detectives also recovered videotapes, hours and hours of recordings, women practicing signatures, repeating names, reciting personal histories, learning how to become someone else. Then they found the final tape, a recording labeled Clara Phase 3. The footage showed Clara sitting beneath bright surgical lights, drugged, disoriented, Julian's voice calmly repeating the same sentence, "You are safe. You are loved. You are Rachel." Again, and again, and again. 3 days before Julian's arraignment, Detective Mara Hensley disappeared. Her car was discovered abandoned beside a highway rest stop. Engine still running. Phone left behind. No signs of struggle. Inside her case files, police found handwritten notes. One sentence circled repeatedly, "Clara may still be alive." Another note simply read, "Check reflections." The disappearance triggered national media attention, but then something stranger happened. An anonymous package arrived at the police department. Inside was a photograph. It showed Hensley sitting at a kitchen table, alive, expression blank, and standing behind her was a woman who looked exactly like Clara Vance, except the woman was smiling too widely, like somebody pretending to understand human emotion. 6 months later, audio surfaced online. No metadata, no source, no identifiable background sounds. The recording lasted 4 minutes. A woman's voice calmly spoke throughout. Most experts believe the voice belonged to Clara. The message began with a simple sentence, "If you are hearing this, then the house is active again." The woman continued, "Julian was never trying to replace wives. That's what he wanted investigators to believe. Replacement implies removal. But he wasn't removing identities. A pause. He was stacking them. The speaker described prolonged psychological conditioning, memory implantation, behavioral overlap. The goal was not creating duplicates. The goal was creating people incapable of knowing who they originally were. Then came the final revelation. There were never two women in the house. Long silence. Only breathing. Then, there were four. The recording ended with footsteps, a door opening, and a male voice calmly asking, "Which one are you today?" Officially, Dr. Julianne Vance died in federal custody. Cardiac arrest. No autopsy released. Rachel disappeared during psychiatric transfer. Never recovered. The Maple Drive property was demolished, but construction workers later refused to continue excavation because beneath the foundation, they discovered dozens of hidden mirrors wrapped carefully in black cloth. Each mirror had names written on the back: Clara, Rachel, Elena, Mara, and several names investigators never publicly released. The final object recovered from the property was a handwritten note hidden inside an air vent. The handwriting matched Clara's. Mostly. It read, "The kitchen is clean now. The mirrors are covered." But he made one mistake. He taught us all how to become each other. And eventually, we stopped needing him. Record log closed. If you are listening to this file, look carefully at the people around you. Listen to the way they repeat your phrases. Notice which memories they suddenly share. And tonight, before you go to sleep, check the reflections in your kitchen windows. Because if somebody smiles a second too late, you may already be living with someone who practiced becoming you. This is Blackwood Files. Record log. Officially ended.